All right, we are live and in the house, and we even have our special guest with us, and he's in the building as well. Look at that. We got Paul Stewart from Scotland, NFL winning scout and football analysis, and on the 105.3 The Fan. You can find him in the Miller Light Club after the game doing the post game show. And I missed your last game. I'm sorry about that. But Mr. Byran Broaddus joining us. And let me give a quick shout out to our sponsor of the show, Todos Medical and Todos Botanicals. Geez, I stumbled that one out. TodosMedical.com have a great line of CBD products and everything to help your immune system as well. And so shout out to them. We want to shout out to Mike Poland over in Spain right now. He couldn't be with us. He is over in Spain right now enjoying his vacation with the family. So, guys, thanks so much. Byran Broaddus, welcome. We appreciate having the expertise on tonight.
I don't know about the expertise. I can maybe help you with your reads a little bit if you know work on that. Wow. I don't know much about scouting and all those things, but I can sure work on those reads. So that's what they got me doing. You know, I'm back over there with those guys at DallasCowboys.com. And so I'm on the break. And Nick Eatman no longer on the show. So Nick was the guy last year that was doing all the reads. And so now with Nick off the show, look who has to do the reads. So ready for those for all those products and all the things, the promotional things that the Cowboys do. They do a ton of promotional things. So, yeah, I'm going to mess up a bunch of reads. Get ready for that.
Well, at least you don't have to type them up anyway, right?
No, I don't. If I typed them up, I need David Hellman to help me out.
I know. I remember that.
Brian, don't worry about reads. I remember the time when I was on hanging with the boys, and Shannon is like, "Go on, Paul, give us a read," and I ended up reading out the Jimmy John's commercial.
Oh, the Jimmy John's.
Yeah, and what Shannon failed to tell me was, I actually sound clipped my voice and used that as a parody, as a soundbite for the rest of the show. I was like, you got
to watch Shannon. You got to watch Shannon. He's always, Shannon's back in the mix now, and it's great to see him back. And but Shannon will have some fun with you. But those reads, the Cowboys, they generate so much money. I mean, there's a read for everything. Every day there's a different read that you have to go through. But it's great being with you guys. It really, really is. And excited to talk a little ball tonight.
Yeah, I guess we can start off. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, I know, because the season is just literally right around the corner. It's this weekend. Well, Thursday's the opening game. Tomorrow, right?
A week from Thursday. A week from this Thursday. A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. Yeah. A week from tomorrow, we've got the whole game, the game against the New York Giants. And we've now announced the 53-man roster. So plenty to talk about.
Yeah, plenty to talk about. I guess, and we can even start off, Brian. I know I've heard you talk about it on air too as well with the Trey Lance. Everybody's getting kind of excited. Some people are like, what's going on? But I personally, I totally agree with everything you said too, is that I think it was a great pickup. It was a shocker, but a great pickup.
Yeah. I think, guys, that, the one thing that we always kind of laugh at Jerry and Steven and Will when they say it is that, personnel is a 24/7 job, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, I know, just having worked in that organization for as long as I did, and then, working in other organizations, fans might not understand why you make a move. They're thinking, well, gosh, you got Dak Prescott, you got Cooper Rush, who's 5-1 as a starter in the NFL. Why do you need to add a quarterback? Where's the backup center? Where's the backup tackle? Why are you using a 4th-round pick? And you never know when opportunity is going to present itself in player personnel. And, the 49ers have obviously, they moved on from Trey Lance. The Cowboys, I know, were high on Trey Lance. I've been on a lot of platforms talking about where they had him on the draft board, high 2nd round. And the one thing that Jerry Jones, and I was with him, like I say, all those years, the thing that it never seemed like that he was willing to give up on a season to have a high enough pick. Now, he had a high enough pick when he drafted Ezekiel Elliott, but he also had Tony Romo at quarterback. So he wasn't willing to completely tank the season. Several years ago, he had the 10th overall pick. He ended up backing up and drafting Micah Parsons, which, he could have drafted Justin Fields. Still had Dak Prescott. Jerry's not willing to use a high premium pick on a quarterback. We went for years. Yeah, in the early 2000, we could have drafted Tom Brady, and maybe things would have been completely different history-wise for the Dallas Cowboys. But, if you look back, Tony Romo, he overpaid for him in free agency. He got him away from Denver and Mike Shanahan by giving him more of a signing bonus, drafting Quincy Carter back in the day, Dak Prescott in the 4th round. He's never committed. And, this is a deal where he knew that he was probably going to overpay to get Trey Lance. But to me, this is about Trey Lance learning this year, finding out where he can play. This is a staff that's got 20 some odd coaches on it. It's, they could take their practice squad players. They could have practice after practice for Trey Lance. They can work with him in meetings, extra time, anything he needs to catch up. I was talking with a buddy of mine at the 49ers, and I'm like, is this kid really where is he at, with smarts and understanding? And this guy's like, no, this guy's good. This guy's really good. He's smart. He understands things. You teach him things. He picks it all up. So, those are things that they're going to have to do. So you just never know. I know fans are kind of freaking out. Oh, is this about Dak? Well, no, it's about trying to upgrade potentially the backup quarterback, maybe not this year, but next year. And then, you never know when your quarterback's going to get injured. We
Exactly.
5 games last year without Dak Prescott. Do you want to, if you could upgrade Cooper Rush as your backup guy, I think you always have to take that opportunity. And I think that's exactly what the Cowboys have done here.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. Like when I saw the trade for Trey Lance, I was like, oh, very interesting. And automatically, I thought like when you look at the quarterbacks we've got Cooper Rush, you had Will Greer. 2 of them are completely different type of quarterbacks compared to Dak Prescott. For me, like Trey Lance is almost like a base version of Dak Prescott right now. Like he's got a lot more. Yeah, because he's got this very physical stature, good arm. He can run with the ball as well. So I thought if he was to give him those years of under Dak's wing, like that would be a much more better, comfortable from the coach's perspective. If in case something did happen to Dak, Trey Lance would actually fit in more naturally that way and not have to kind of change the game plan as much. I feel.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Paul. I mean, that's the thing that, when I remember evaluating the player coming out of North Dakota State, if I sent you my report right now, the first line in the report is he has some similarities to Dak Prescott. Mm-hmm. And the similarities are this kid is, and I always say this about Dak, when it's a game where Dak can feel the game, when he can feel the hit, he could feel the mud, the blood, the physicality which the game is played. He really is a much better player. And so Trey Lance at North Dakota State is one of those guys that once he felt the game, he was a guy that really, he could, once he knew, he's like, okay, I have to play this way today. And he was capable of doing that. And what he could do is, he throws the ball well. He's got a strong arm. The same traits that Dak has with his ability to run to his left, square up his shoulders, and then throw the ball on the move. Yep. Now, this is what Trey Lance, we were watching him in practice today. Even some of the drills that they were doing this morning at practice were him moving around and him throwing on the move. And, lo and behold, you're like going, okay, I understand why the Cowboys had Trey Lance where they had him on their board.
Hey, Brian, also, did I read that right, too? Didn't he have it? I mean, when you scouted him, he had 24 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions that season?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny, and nothing against North Dakota State. at all. I'm not trying to, for any fans, I think the state of North Dakota already hates me for Hunter Luepke because I put Hunter Luepke on the practice squad instead of putting him on the active roster. So the state of North Dakota is not a big fan
we
of
talked
Byran
about
Broaddus.
that the other night.
Yeah, they're not a fan of Byran Broaddus at all. So, that's kind of where when you watch, at North Dakota, they play a really high level of football. But you look at some of the receivers. I mean, the receivers, they win championships, but do they go on? The Packers have a receiver, that came from North Dakota State that, when it goes on and does well. And, that kind of, so, but overall, he's got guys, or he threw to guys. And there were times where I would watch him throw the ball and he wasn't rewarded for as good of a throw as he made. There's some of these quarterbacks play with receivers that, go on to NFL and go, a lot of these guys. And again, this is not against North Dakota State. This is just a reality that these guys go from playing football to going into lawyers, doctors, pharmacists, accountants, whatever. They go on to other careers. And so I felt like that, when he went to San Francisco, I'm thinking like, well, this will be a great fit for him with Kyle Shanahan, the way they build their team, the way they like to run the ball. But he got hurt. I mean, whether it was a finger, ankle, there was always something going on that kept Trey Lance from getting his opportunity to play and play at a high level. And, that's one of the things when you talk to people there in San Francisco, they're like, this is a great kid. He just could not get healthy to play. And maybe he could get all that behind him, like I said, we'll see how it all plays out.
It's funny that you met, speaking about, like I said, getting healthy, if there's one thing that Dallas has, I would say more than any other team in the NFL, they probably have the best medical staff in the NFL. Because look what they did for Jalen Smith, look what they did for Dak. Like, they're still able to have, Jalen Smith, for a good example, like he actually managed to have an NFL career if it wasn't for the Dallas medical staff. So
Dr. Cooper, those guys do a great job. Britt Brown, Jim Maurer, all the trainers over there, the doctors. It is, I've been in several organizations, and I have the utmost respect for these trainers with the job they do. But this staff at the Cowboys, like you said, Paul, is one of the best in the league.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But yeah, so speaking about like Hunter Luepke and stuff like that, as you kind of mentioned there, Brian. So the full 53-man roster has now officially came out. So as we kind of mentioned, we've got Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance. Like, just even those three quarterbacks, when you mentioned, that is a really sturdy, solid quarterback core. Like, we can all learn from each other going forward. So I think we're really happy and set with that. Obviously, with Trey Lance, as we kind of mentioned, he's got a lot of, like, he's there to develop under, like, Dak and under the coaches there. But running backs, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Luepke. Mm-hmm. So give me your thoughts with the running backs, Brian.
Yeah. And funny, today, I'll say something real final thing for the quarterbacks today. Dak and Trey, when they were warming up, talking and then throwing drills together, Dak was with him. The one thing that I think with Dak is, Tony Romo didn't particularly treat Dak very well when Dak first came in the league. It was really, Mark Sanchez and then, Kellen Moore were the ones that really kind of helped him along. Total opposite from what we've seen with Dak Prescott, at least what I observed on the practice field today. He was up there when they ran together to drills. They did drills together. He was helping him in that way. So that's a good start right there. The running backs, it came out as how I thought. Now, I didn't think they, like I said, I didn't think they were going to keep Hunter Luepke, and I think that the special teams and then what he was able to do in that final game, I think gave them, the coaching staff in the front office, the thought of, okay, when we get in games, if we have to go short yardage, if we have to go tough runner, Rico Dowdle can do those things, but Hunter Luepke might be on a different level than what we've seen before. So to me, if Hunter Luepke is active each week, whether it's playing special teams or being a short yardage back. He can do a lot of different things for you. So I kind of felt like that maybe they would try and get him to the practice squad and then elevate him on a week-to-week basis, but no, it didn't work out that way. But I really do like I like the room. I like what we saw from Deuce Vaughn. I like what we saw from Rico Dowdle. I think he's a much better pass blocker than than what we saw with Davis. And then Tony Pollard is looking as healthy as as you could really as could be expected. I mean, he was running around in the drills today and stuff like that. The parts that we got to watch, the quickness, the burst, those things were all there. So it's a good room. And then they were able to get Malik Davis onto the practice squad. So again, that gives them a little bit of, they've got the 53, but that gives them a little flexibility if they need to do something with Malik Davis.
Brian, you had the experience too with Mike Green Bay and everything. The only reason I thought Hunter might have a shot is because didn't he like the fullbacks in Green Bay? He liked using fullbacks and having them on the team and everything.
Yeah, but it's funny though, Barry. This guy's not like a traditional fullback. This isn't. They've John Kuhn and guys like that they've had in the past. Those guys were like line up at fullback, go in the line of scrimmage, dig a linebacker out. It's the Hunter is more of a one back, single back runner that has some physicality. I'm not saying he can't block. He was dealing with a shoulder issue while in college that caused him to miss some time. And so, you're wondering, okay, how many guys are like that? I mean, he's not your traditional fullback. So that's where I think there's going to be a little bit of a difference here right now.
Well, let's take a quick minute here. We got to introduce our other special guest on here tonight, and so Voch,
I'm going off now. I am not going to be a part of this.
Hey, Brian, so I'll tell you some background here. When I first met Voch, and he was talking about, I'd love to meet Byran Broaddus. I said, oh my gosh, we can make that happen, for crying out loud. And now he's like Mr. YouTuber, football whiz. Look at that. There you go. Voch Lombardi.
He's going to come take my job is what he's going to come do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Brian is a king of this. He's one of the reasons why I do it. And there was once upon a time, right? I was thinking about being safe. I was thinking about being safe out here, right? I was like, man, let me not ruffle any feathers. But I watched Brian keep rising while ruffle feathers. So I was like, cool, let's just ruffle the feathers. And whatever happens, happen. I don't like Hunter Liepke neither like that, Brian. Listen, I don't have a problem necessarily with Hunter Liepke. This is my thing. Let me just get right into it, Barry. My bad. I don't have a problem with Hunter Liepke. This team is deep. This team is incredibly deep. There's not a lot of room, for wiggle here. So I ask everybody all the time, what makes Hunter Liepke special to you? I think he's a cool back. He's a versatile back. But what makes him special to you? And they say, well, Voch, his versatility. He can line up at this many spots. Cool. I've only seen him play running back. And I've seen 3 other running backs play running back better than him. I'm sorry. My other thing, right? I was just watching the film, preseason game 3, right, Brian? I watched Tyree Wilson whoop Josh Ball. But later on in the game, I saw Luke Schoonmaker handle Tyree Wilson. If Hunter Liepke was lined up at tight end, boy, that's going to be a terrible day for him versus guys like Tyree Wilson or these other top-tier defenders in the league. So that takes a lot of his versatility out. I see him as a fullback kind of guy, but he's even as fullback, running back kind of guy. In this game day roster, on this stacked team, this incredibly stacked team, where you going to find carries or passes for fullback Hunter Liepke when you got to get Deuce involved, Tony involved, CD involved, Brandon Cooks involved, your other 2 tight ends involved? I don't see a lot of place for Hunter Liepke to really produce for you besides kicking teams. If he got a place on kicking teams, fine. That makes a little bit of sense to me. But just to roll up and just believe, Hunter Liepke's getting 3 catches tonight and 6 carries and he's going to do X, Y, Z. I don't see it. I would have rather have kept Isaiah Land. I would have rather have kept, Bohanna, because, Bohanna, I can at least say this about Bohanna. He didn't beat Neville Gallimore, but run defense has definitely been a problem on his team. Run defense has been a problem on his team. And I'm just going to knock on wood. If anything happens to 95 or 97, we're going to be looking for 350-pound people not named Mazi Smith. I would have kept those guys over the 4th running back that's not going to get very much carries or catches.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Voch. It's like, because I'm one of the biggest Neville Gallimore fans out there, but I was very surprised he was kept on the team. Because I thought Bohanna would have been the more suitable choice, but given the fact that we need the more bigger bodies in the inside of the defensive line as your one tech or zero or whatever. So I was quite surprised about that. I mean, I just really don't understand how, like, and Brian, Voch, you can maybe help me expand on this. What did you guys see that how the coaches would think Neville Gallimore got the nod ahead of Quentin?
Yeah, I think this came down to Sharif Floyd. I think Sharif Floyd coming in maybe saved Neville Gallimore. Neville Gallimore was a guy, when we were all watching preseason football last year, was playing in the fourth quarters of games. And I'll never forget doing the games with Brad Sham on the radio, and he would reset who was in the game late in the fourth, and Neville Gallimore's name came up, and you're starting to go, wow, something is not right here with a veteran playing this much of a game. And I do believe that Sharif Floyd coming in, new defensive line, working with the defensive line coach, new coach on that side, is the one that really pushed for Neville Gallimore to be a part of this defensive line. And I call it a lifeline, call it what you want. I thought Quentin Bohanna showed some really good things this camp.
Same.
But then when it came down to when I was doing my 53, I'm like thinking, Brian, you can't put Quentin Bohanna on this team because they're probably not looking at Quentin Bohanna the same way that you are. They're probably thinking of other things. And then I started to hear about Neville Gallimore, the coaching staff and all that, and how they were looking. Same thing kind of happened with the tight ends, with McEwen. Everything I was hearing from the coaching staff was, oh, McEwen's, we're going to carry four, we're going to carry four, we're going to carry four. I think Hunter Luepke put McEwen on the street from that last game, as far as that goes. But as far as these defensive tackles, man, it was surprising to me, because I think there were some things that Neville Gallimore flashed on when we were in Oxnard, but I wasn't thinking man, this guy's he's made the 53. He's disruptive. He's this. He's that. I didn't see that, but I do think Sharif Floyd was the one that saved him from being let go off this roster.
Well, if I had to guess, and this may or may not be right, but if I just had to guess, right, I'm thinking Mazi Smith's pass rush development didn't move along fast enough. If I had to guess, right, because Oso Digizua is clearly I can get upfield fast guy, right, and we have our rundown dudes, like our rundown depth guys. But if anything were to happen in 97, who's your next three tech guy? There's, we got our 0/1 tech type guys, right? But what other bursty upfield three tech type of guy do you have? Chances of, he's a halfway guy, but Neville really is your only guy. Bohanna can line up in B gap sometimes, but that doesn't necessarily make him a three tech. So if I had to guess, they saw Neville getting off the football. He may not have been very strong. He may have got pushed around a little bit, but at least he got the football and maybe some of these pass rushing downs. And they looked at Mazi, and Mazi's still trying to figure out how to be pass rush guy. Mazi might be ready to be, run stopping guy, double team me guy right now, but the one-on-one bursty get upfield B gap, Mazi may not be ready right now. And if I had to guess, maybe that's the reason why Neville, lived through this thing and not Bo.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're really onto something there as well. But I mean, when you start to look, I was not interested in keeping anybody that was going to keep Mazi Smith off the field.
Yeah.
That's just the selfish side of me. I did not want these coaches or McCarthy or anybody to say, okay, we can't play Mazi because so-and-so is doing this and so-and-so is doing that. I'm like, no, you know what? Let's sink or swim with this kid. If there's a guy in front of him, coaches will figure out how to not get him active. They won't put him in there. They won't use him. All the things, the coaches will always revert back to a guy that they know that can do it. The young guys, sometimes they have to play him. Other times it's like, no, wait, play this guy. I know what he's going to do. He's not going to make mistakes. He's not going to get blocked. Instead of saying, hey, throw the young guy in there and let him play. But I think, Voch, you're on to something about, like I say, to me, it's Floyd. And it's a lot to do with what you're talking about with the three technique. Because I'm going to be honest with you, playing Golston at three technique, I've seen a little regression there from him. I haven't seen Golston be that guy that like, okay, he's like, you see it with Osa, with Golston, they play him at the 3. There was some flash of it last year, kind of reverted back a little bit, kind of reverted back to, like, okay, well, what's this guy doing right now? I didn't see the upfield like you need to see.
You didn't seem to hear his name mentioned at all either during preseason.
And it was tough. It was tough. He wasn't as good a player and he was a guy, I think, in the first, in that Jacksonville game where they were playing him deep into the 4th. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. But, they'll tell you about, I don't think Junior Fehoko is going to give you anything. Could be dead wrong about that, but they've talked about him playing inside at the 3. So it's going to have to be somebody in there backing up Osa.
Yeah, I was going to mention a bit for Fehoko because some news outlets have actually registered him down as a defensive tackle rather than the defensive end, so I thought that was quite interesting. But just to outline all the defensive linemen, I know I'm kind of jumping from running backs now to defensive linemen, but now we were kind of on that subject.
Sure show.
That's how it works.
So we've got 11 defensive linemen as registered here. So Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Williams, Darren Armstrong, Dante Fowler, Osa Adigizua, Jonathan Hankins, Mazi Smith, Neville Gallimore, Chancey Dolston, and Junior Fehoko. So what are you guys' thoughts in terms of the whole defensive line unit?
Brian, let me ask you a question. When you were watching Isaiah Land, and it was probably later on in the draft process because everybody didn't get the Isaiah Land film early. We had to wait and sell our soul to get it late. And when he was playing against these other schools, right, did you look at him and go, man, if that dude played for Georgia, if that dude played for Alabama, right? When you watched him, what round did you think he would go if he played for a bigger school? Because I know he got hurt and he had to sit out for a little bit, and he was going to play against North Carolina. And that's some competition, right? So if you're a small school guy, direction guy, HBCU guy, Senior Bowl helps, and playing against a big school help. He was going to play against North Carolina. He was going to see Austin Richards. He got hurt. We didn't see him versus that. So all we saw was this 19.5 sack year versus these kids that we'll never see play football again. It's unfortunate for them, right? But if that dude would have went to Georgia, where would you have drafted Isaiah Land?
Didn't he start at Maryland? Wasn't he originally? I mean, I might be wrong about this. I'm sorry, I needed to look this up, but I thought he started.
I'll look that up for you.
I thought he started his career at Maryland, and then ended up at Florida A&M. And because I was asking, I always do this when there's certain guys that play at schools like Deron Bland, like there's somebody in the Pac-12, like at Washington State or at UCLA that should have had him in one of those Pac-12 schools. Sure. So to me, they sometimes they miss these guys. Am I wrong about Paul? What did
he was at Florida A&M from 2018 to 2022.
So he never went to Maryland. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was something about his game where I thought he'd started at Maryland and then went somewhere else. Okay, that's on me then. My apologies. Might be somebody else. But anyway, when you watch these kids play, though, when you watch him play, you're always thinking about how can these kids get into a Senior Bowl or one of these other games where they can kind of line up and show. But I mean, the first person that told me about him was Aisha Morrison on the draft show. Aisha, it was like she came in and she's like, "You see this kid from Florida A&M play?" And I'm like, "No." And she's, "You got to watch him. You got to watch him play." And you're right. Getting film and all that was tough to see him. But you were wondering, like, man, maybe if this guy did, like you're asking there, Voch, if he went to, maybe if he was playing at North Carolina State or Florida State or one of those other places, that you would have him much higher on your board because the way he looks, the way he plays, it's super impressive. I mean, he's rushing. He's the one guy that looks like that he's playing with technique coming off that edge. Now, in these games, these preseason games, you're watching him rush. You're like, man, this guy gets it. He gets it that he has that technique and that ability and that bend in order to make things happen. I had him on my 53, and it's funny. I texted Will McClay this morning. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, did you lose anybody?" He says, "We lost, we lost our edge from Florida A&M." And I said, man, I had him on my 53. And the one thing that Will said to me was, though, he says, Bryan, we do have plenty of edge rushers, though. We do have plenty of edge. And I'm like, okay. I go, that's why you're in scouting, and that's why I'm doing media, because I kind of thought that this guy should be on your 53-man roster.
Well, if anything, this just proves the Cowboys are really like all in. Like we're really in championship mode because Dante Fowler's a 1-year guy. Dorrance Armstrong is a 1-year guy. D-Law is 32, so he's basically a 1-year guy. You know, he could be a 1-year guy at just any moment, you know? So if Sam Williams is going to be trouble guy, you got ends right now, but you know pass rushes right now, but that doesn't mean you got pass rushes later. And my whole point for asking you that, Bryan, I know they like to sign draft picks, and I agree. I just didn't see it from Viliami Fehoko. So in my mind, even if we didn't or whatever, right? Let's just say he's a 3rd round pick kind of guy. There's more value in him than a guy like Fehoko. When I saw Fehoko, he just kind of flashed to me, right? I saw effort from him. I was like, oh, Fehoko gives effort. He runs around a little bit. That's a fun little motor trait. When I see Land, I see the rare stuff. I see the bend. I see the hands. I see the wiggle. I see the arm length and all that kind of stuff. And I go, man, Land's traits are a little more rare to me than Viliami's traits. Every single year, there's an effort guy with long hair. Every year, there's a long hair effort guy. Good luck finding those bendy, lengthy dudes without having like one of these top picks. So that's where I thought our mistake was in the D-line room. I would gladly get rid of the 4th round pick and take my loss and say, hey, this roster's just that good. And I would have held on to Isaiah Land for the long run.
Well, this is one of those things where, too, you know, and these scouts really do like working with Dan Quinn. They love working with Dan. And, you know, Dan was the guy that, you know, made the trip to San Jose, got the workout, you know, all that stuff. Dan's going to wear these next 2 guys. Dan is going to wear Kelvin Joseph, and he's going to wear Bohanna. Those were 2 guys that he went and worked out. They trusted him. They went to Lexington. McCarthy was in Lexington, Kentucky. So was Will McClay. They drafted those players. Sometimes these coaches hit on players, but this was a Dan Quinn stamped player, Fehoko. And so, I mean, when he got hurt and he wasn't practicing, I'm thinking, okay, here's player 53 on my roster now. There's player 53. If I have to make a move, I'm not going to get rid of anybody else. I'm probably going to get rid of this guy. But, man, I mean, I didn't see it initially. There's some things, like I say, you're right. You watch the tape, the college tape. He's super active. He's around the ball. But, man, you were kind of hoping that he would have shown a little bit more when he got the opportunity here during training camp.
Didn't Dan Quinn talk about him a lot early on? He talked about Isaiah Land. I think I remember seeing something. He was really raving about him early on.
Sure, you know, and it could just be a thing about roles, right? This isn't like the old days, right? To where Marinelli has like a Tyrone Crawford type guy. We're like, oh, well, we'll put him here if we need him, or we'll put him here if we need him. Man, Jonathan Hankins is a head-up zero guy. Bohanna is a guy like that, but Osa's different from him, so he plays B-gap. Noel Gallimore is the guy that's kind of like that. Mazi is a 1-tech, sometimes 3-tech guy. Everybody has this role. You'll really see Chauncey in odd fronts. You won't see him in too many of these even fronts. D-Law is an edge guy that plays B-gap sometimes. There are guys that are B-gap guys that play edge. Everybody has a role here and a very particular thing that they do. It's not just some random thing. So Dan may have had a role for Viliami that would leave him a little more, you know, hey, Billy, there's something for you to do. As opposed to Isaiah Land's role had 5 people in that role or that archetype, whatever. You're like, Land, you're a Dante Fowler type guy. Cool, we got a Dante Fowler. You're a Micah Parsons type guy. You know what I mean? So maybe there was no need for Isaiah Land right now, which led me to believe that maybe this is a, proof that this is like a win now thing. Isaiah Land is clearly a guy that if you're the coach and you're building, you would love to have a dude like that if you're building a roster. But we just need dudes to help us, win now and fill those roles out. But I just think Fehoko is going to be a dude that's not active. He's not going to make 40, 48 or whatever. He's not going to be. He's not.
I think he's going to be an inactive guy every week. I think you're right about that. The thing with Lamb that's interesting, and it probably went back to the college grades that Chris Ballard and those guys had at the Colts. They probably had him on their board, and they said, "Listen, well, we liked him enough. Dallas signed him. We couldn't get to him, but here they are. Now they have the opportunity to claim him and." I bet you their pro guys were probably watching the tape and they're like, maybe they're looking at Pro Football Focus number and they're seeing pass rush win rates and stuff like that with this guy. And so that's kind of probably why they made the claim. I'm surprised that more teams didn't claim the guy. Maybe we'll find out that 2 or 3 teams did claim him, and the Colts, because of the record, were able to get him off that claim.
I've got a question for you guys. It's still related to the defensive line. So I haven't seen any news yet with regards to Isaac Aracon. Is he now back in the practice squad yet?
Here's some honesty about Isaac, man. I know he was in the program and that carried him along on the roster. Hey, look, shouts out to him. He probably did some great things for his family and all that, but the program kept him in the league. I don't think he's a practice squad guy. Yeah,
there's the thing with Isaac is I think if he ever has a chance, and the reason why he got the opportunity at defensive tackle was because last couple of years when he's playing scout team, when when all of a sudden he's an offensive lineman on the scout team, then all of a sudden they shift over to, okay, offense now is running their plays. Isaac, big body, okay, you got to go play defensive tackle, and maybe that's where all of a sudden Dan Quinn, you're watching him, you're like, oh, well, there's a big body guy and all that. I think they've got 14 spots they filled already. And so
yes,
I think they got 2 more spots. I kind of feel like that if he's going to do it, like Voch said, the league kept him in the league. So if he's going to make the practice squad, that's where he's going to have to do it on his own. But maybe they keep him because, again, you practice defense, you practice offense. He practices the whole day, and it saves him wear and tear on 2 players is what it does.
Yeah, because that was exactly what I was kind of thinking, because when you can have a guy that's done defensive lineman work and offensive line, it's actually quite a good mixture to have one guy that can actually do both and help with the scouting. So, yeah. But you mentioned there about the practice squad there. So I've got the list here right now. So there's Malik Jefferson, Earl Bostic Jr., Jalen Malone-Cropper, Malik Davis, C.J. Goodwin, Seljuk Redwine, Brock Hoffman, Sean McEwen, who we already mentioned, Tyra Sweet, Princeton Fant, Josh Butler, Tyron Johnson, Darrell Johnson, Sean Harlow, and Alex Taylor. Oh God, I cannot pronounce his surname. Oh my God. Prelilu?
Prelu. Right.
Prelu. Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
So give me your thoughts about the guys that we brought back. Is there anything that kind of stands out to you guys?
CJ Goodwin's going to be here. I imagine at some point one of those centers are going to be a guy that gets pulled up at some point, but we're going to knock on wood and hope nothing bad happens to Broaddus. Sean McEwen is probably going to be another guy that they possibly could bring up every now and then. I'm interested in what they like about Bostic. They say that they like Bostic, but Bostic is a traits guy, and I don't really see it on film with him right now. But they've turned Terence Steele into a dude, and I didn't see it with him.
Yeah.
Coming out of Texas Tech, and they're that similar build, right? Like they're bigger than what you think they are. They got the length, they got the movement, and things like that. So if you could just hammer down on that technique, make them a little stronger, send them to Duke Manyweather, you never know what you can get from a Bostic there. What makes Austin Prelude interesting is that he's one of your rare right tackles in this thing. He's rare, and his film was pretty solid. Now I don't think he's a guy that if anything happens to Terence Steele, you just roll Prelude in there. I don't think that's the case. But we have a lot of left side players, a lot of left side tackles, left side guards. And I was asked this today on my show, man, if anything happens to Terence, what do you do? And my only other option was, hey, can we just move Tyron back over there and we'll figure out left side? But if Tyron gets hurt, then what? Right? So Prelude being the only right side player that I have faith in, I'm not really a Chuma Doga faither. I don't have much faith in him. Just roll your young guys in there. I believe that if it's close between these veterans and these young guys, just throw your young guys in the fire. And Chuma Doga didn't show me that he was separating himself from these young guys. Forniak was another guy, but he's gone. So if that's the case, if Prelude and Chuma are close, then I'm just going to throw Prelude in there and just let the young guys go.
I'll tell you this, though, and Voch, that was an excellent evaluation of really where they're at. The thing that I think now, I think so much right now of the situation with what's going on, with TJ Bass. I feel like that like if something were to happen to one of these tackles, I'm going to go ahead and move Tyler Smith because I feel confident enough to put TJ Bass in a game and say, you know what, it might be ugly, it might be belly to belly blocking, it might be holding, it might be a lot of tripping. There'll be. This guy is super competitive.
He'll fight.
He'll fight you, and like not all 5 guys are going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need Ron Leary in there. Sometimes you need.
Oh, now we're talking.
You need mean, nasty SOB playing that guard spot. And you know what? I'm going to move Tyler Smith. I'm going to plug Bass in. But I'll tell you what, though, I do think enough of Austin Richards too to absolutely consider him at one of those tackle spots.
Sure.
And I know it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be kind of crazy out there. Maybe give up a pressure or two, but I think he'll fight his ass off. I think the athletic ability is really, really good. I think he lacks power and strength. But I'll tell you what, the athletic ability to get on the edge for potential screens, outside running plays, working with these tight ends, I'm confident that those 2 guys could get it done. But it's not going to be pristine. It is going to be a little bit of a struggle. But you grade these offensive linemen on 65 plays. You don't grade them on 2. You grade them on 65 plays. And if they have a couple of bad plays, now hopefully the 2 bad plays don't get you killed, like we learned from Green, Chaz Green back in the day.
Yeah.
We learned that, but that's on Garrett. That's on Jason Garrett and that staff for that one. But I'm feeling a little bit better about those 2 guys. Everybody else, I'm kind of like, I don't know, Hoffman. I think he's your practice squad bring up and down guy for at least 3 weeks. I think they're going to hold off on McEwen and keep him on the practice squad because they don't need that 4 tight end for anything right now. So get Goodwin up, get Hoffman up to backup, be the backup center, and then because you're only allowed those 2 guys, and then keep everybody else on that practice squad for right now.
Who was it you mentioned about the physicality? Was it Richards you were talking about there, Brian?
Bass.
Bass
is a nasty, scrappy. It ain't always. The hands ain't always going to be in the right place. He's going to wrestle and all that kind of stuff. But he moves dudes. As opposed to like a Connor Williams type that can do all the movements. He can pull and get to. Bass will move bodies, and he's a fantastic help guy. He's always looking for work. When Matt Walesko's getting whooped on the right side, he'll go in there and clean up. I love TJ Bass's game, and he may not be powerful enough right now, just in terms of are you powerful enough, but the scrappiness makes up for it.
Because what I was going to mention this, because when we remember when Terence Steele first came into the squad, like he did lack that little bit of strength, but going under is it Duke Manyweather, the offensive lineman coach for the offseason, you saw the transformation in Terence Steele's game in his offseason. If you can get like TJ Bass and even Richards and all these other guys that are now in the practice squad, who knows what could happen in year 2?
Yeah, I just, like I say, there's so much change. I really wonder. I hope everything's good with Terence Steele because I know health-wise he'll be fine. And there's a couple of guys that I did not give enough credit to. I did not give enough credit to Steele when he was coming in and how he was developing. But Joe Philbin did a really good job with him. Joe Philbin got him ready to play. And it was a clear difference them running the football with him and Martin together as opposed with Martin and Tyron Smith running the football over there. And you would have thought, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. No, it was clearly different with Terence Steele not being over there. Something about Zach Martin and Terence Steele together is a really good combination on that right side.
It's a nasty combination. That's what it is.
Yeah. Hey guys, I got a question for you. What the 53-man rod? The only one I was surprised at. Of course, he did a few of our events, so we were kind of a fan of his. But what happened to Jabril Cox? Do you think injuries, or before he got hurt, he was flying all over the place, and I don't know what happened to him. What do you guys think?
I think sometimes when you get hurt and you miss reps and you're on a team like this and everybody else is getting reps and they say, boy, look at Devin Harper flying around.
Yeah.
Boy, look at Marquise Bell flying around. And this just happens to be a team to where, we play one or two linebackers at a time. Sometimes another safety will come in and be a linebacker, right? So it's just not old school where we start 3 linebackers and we need 9 guys to back them up. It's just not the world that we live in. So Jabril, his biggest thing was coverage. Can you come in and be cover guy? If you go back to North Dakota State, I believe he was there with Trey Lance. He was just a safety. He wasn't even hybrid guy. He was just regular safety. So his upside thing was cover guy. Okay, so let's put Jabril Cox versus other cover guys who actually play safety right now. Marquise Bell may be a better safety guy than him, so it comes down to your run game stuff, and Jabril never did kind of excel at run game stuff. And like I said, when you see these other guys flying around, and I thought with Overshown getting hurt that it was going to be an opportunity for him, but when he gets hurt and they say, hey, safety, Marquise Bell, come in and do this, I kind of had a feeling that they didn't want to lean on, Jabril.
Yeah, I think, like you said too, I think didn't Quinn talk a lot about that. Being all these guys now, he's creating different schemes for all these guys now. That's when I started thinking, oh man, that don't sound good for Jabril.
Sure.
I'll tell you what, the thing with Overshown, how well he played in preseason and practices and stuff, it really masked the problems that Cox had. Because we're all immediately focusing on Overshown and what he's going to do. And Jabril Cox became an afterthought. He became and everything that Voch said about him is absolutely right. From the, his calling card was as a cover guy. And then he got hurt. And then you watch some of the take on stuff. And, when he's clean and he can run, he can get things done. But there's a lot of times where he's not clean and he couldn't get off blocks, and the ball's coming at him and he's just not physical enough. So, he I think he signed with the Commanders, like a practice squad. Maybe he'll get an opportunity. That's a really good defense over there. They got a good front four there. But like I said, there will be times where you watch him play and he really struggles with stuff that's like right at him, and I think that's why they moved on.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a bit of a surprise, but now that you kind of mention it, because all the talk was basically on Overshown and Cox was becoming more the afterthought. But kind of moving on from that, we also did make another trade the other day there. We no longer have Kelvin Joseph on the roster anymore. We've now got the former number 1 draft pick for the Miami Dolphins a couple of years ago.
Igbinoghene, Noah Igbinoghene, yep.
Say that.
No idea.
Like, 4 times, huh?
Yeah.
I'm glad Voch is on this show because I just called him Iggy.
Honestly, Brian, me trying to pronounce his name with my Scottish accent would have been an absolute disaster. So thank you much for that. So, but can you give me your thoughts on the trade?
I wasn't the biggest fan of him as a first round pick, I would say. When I was watching, he was more like a day 2 guy. But I think Miami messed up that whole, like they even got a guy from the left tackle from USC, Austin Jackson. So I'm like, man, they just wasted both these first round picks. That was my thought at the time. But Noah he was an athlete. And when he was in Auburn, he was more of a man cover guy. Runs around, moves well. But I think sometimes, these guys deal with the mental processing of the game, and, you can out athlete people in college. You can't out-athlete people on the next level, which is funny because that's the same thing that we'll say about Kelvin Joseph, right? Kelvin is the athlete here, but mentally, right? When I'm a wide receiver and I start playing these mind games with you, I start showing you something. When I start setting this up with another route that looks like this, I can throw you off your game a little bit. So Igbinoghene's problem is that if you're going to be physical man guy, you need to make plays on the football. And if you get shaken a bunch, you get, off your square, you can't really afford to give up 1 inch in this league. And he's not a very patient corner, and you can't be a non-patient corner playing man coverage, even if you're a super athlete. So in my mind, maybe there's this world where Dan Quinn knows exactly what he's going to do with him, but I don't think he's going to do very much corner things. I think he's going to be another team's guy. So if he's going to be super athlete for you, then maybe he's punt gunner without the rap music and the off-field problems.
Hey, man, I tell you what, Voch has got it right. I asked one of my gang of 7, which are my general managers and player personnel guys and all that. I know the player coming out of Auburn when I did him, and I felt like that much better athlete than really a cover guy. And there were times where I felt like he didn't find the ball very well. I felt like there were some lacks of some instincts there and stuff like that, but he was just a super athlete to begin with. But I asked one of my guys in the league, one of my pro personnel guys, I said, tell me about this player. And I said, is he good? That's what you always do. You say, is this guy good? And he says, good, no. Functional, yes. Athletic, but instincts hold him back. Good dude, wired right, more of a fourth, fifth, and can play on special teams. So that's kind of where this one team kind of thought about him as a player, but the stuff coming out, like I say, you're trading basically the same player for the same player is what you're doing. When you talk about Kelvin Joseph, and I thought Kelvin Joseph played really well this summer. I mean, for what he was trying to do, but then he lines up off sides, and you're like, okay, it just reminds you of the lack of awareness that he has sometimes, and you're like, okay. So Dolphins happy to move on from their guy. You're happy to move on from your guy. You see which one makes it work. That's kind of where this trade's at right now.
Brian, I'll even raise you one about Kelvin. I was at a point to where I was saying, this preseason, Kelvin is playing better than Izzy because Izzy played a lot of slot. And Izzy looks good versus these bigger slot guys, right? So when we saw Izzy, it was playoffs. Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin isn't a slashy type guy. He's a bigger dude, right? But when we watched preseason, we watched Christian Kirk. We saw, Jackson and Jigba and what they did to Israel. And Israel gave up some big plays. Kelvin Joseph versus those same type of guys didn't give up those big plays. So in my mind, Brian, I was like, man, Kelvin Joseph is competing with Israel McQuallu.
Yeah.
But you see what happens to Kelvin. But
there's the guy that, you talk about guys like with Golston and maybe guys that take a step back. And you're right about this, Voch, that, when you look at McQuallu, it's like he doesn't look like the same guy. Now you're like, what's his deal? Is he injured? Is he playing? And then now they and they were throwing Kelvin Joseph on all those slot plays. They were even playing Bland on the outside just to give Kelvin more of an opportunity to play in the slot. So that's like I said, it's unfortunate, but hey, Dan Quinn's going to wear these two. Like I said, that's a second rounder that. He put his stamp on for a kid that didn't play a lot of football at LSU and he didn't play a lot of football at Kentucky. But you know what? He kind of, to his credit, he worked hard to be a good special teams player. But, time ran out on him.
All right. Closing thoughts on the roster, maybe, guys, and then we'll try to. Then we want to. You guys.
Well, before we do that, I do have one question from the chat, which I find was actually quite interesting. It's from Elizabeth Richardson. Any thoughts on ACL injuries? Are the trainers missing something?
If I was a medical expert, I promise I have something for you, Ms. Liz, but I ain't got nothing. I do have a theory that maybe these athletes have optimized their body so much that they run faster than what their knees are supposed to be able to handle. Because I just don't see a whole bunch of this in high school, and college is a thing now. But when I was playing ball, I didn't see a whole bunch of ACL tears. I guess we just weren't fast enough. But just football has gotten so much better. You just see 300-pound people running around running 4.4s. Hey, maybe 300 pounds ain't supposed to be moving that fast. So that's my non-medical professional answer. Don't write this down. And shouts out to my chat that came through showing love. 280 y'all in the chat. Salute to y'all. Thank y'all for coming through.
I think there's a couple of things. I am not a doctor, but I'll try and help Voch out here with my answer. I think there's a couple of things. I think turf has developed to the point where it's too grippy, and shoes have developed to the point where they're too grippy as well. And what happens, and to Voch's point, you get these athletes that are running at a high rate of speed, and then they just slam on the brakes. Look what happened to Overshown the other day. He's going to the outside, and he's going to make this play. He's made the play, and he's trying to kind of stop. And what happens? Shoe catches, turf, sticky, shoe. And when you have that happen with that sudden stop, then you get the tears. Yeah. And, I didn't see what happened with the receiver at practice the other day. Durden, I think is his name. I didn't see how he got hurt. But when you're talking about the way, like I say, the way these non-contact injuries are, I think a lot of them are because of turf being sticky, and the shoes are built to a point where they become very sticky as well, and it's a bad combination.
Very interesting. Yeah, I thought it was quite. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, when you're playing on grass and turf, it's a whole different scenario because you do have that little bit of leeway, but when you're playing in turf, it feels like glue sometimes. And one thing and this is just a different perspective, rather than like the linebackers. But see, when you look at like the offensive linemen, and when they're kick stepping back, they've got all the grip in the world. But see, when someone clashes into you and they actually hits your your leg is stuck, and you're taking that full on impact. Because you see how many collisions with offensive linemen, not just the Cowboys, but all across the league on turf. And you see how many injuries when it comes to knee injuries with offensive linemen and stuff. That's why they wear the knee braces in college and stuff like that. So I just think that it is a problem to kind of look for the NFL to look into, for sure.
Well, they're trying, like the Players Association is screaming about grass. They want more grass fields. And until you figure out, now Jerry Jones will have an opportunity. We'll see how grass works when we get the World Cup here, at AT&T Stadium. And how will grass be grown to be put in that? Will you leave the roof open? How do you bring trays in? What do you have to do? But the Players Association is just screaming about grass, and the owners are saying, well, you know what? When we put turf in, it saves money. You don't have to keep the grass up, or you don't have to keep changing the grass out. So they need to think about their players a little more, probably, for those fields.
I'll tell you the best example the Cowboys and all the other teams can actually learn from is from Tottenham Hotspur.
Tottenham, yeah.
Yep, because they've got the dual stadium. So basically they've got the grass underneath, which they keep it maintained, and they can actually they roll out the turf on top of it. So they've got the best of both worlds, so they can actually maintain both at the same time, and it's an open top stadium. So there's all those different aspects how they can actually maintain a grass and a turf. So that's probably one way they could look at it.
Yeah, what is Tottenham Stadium? Was it $2 billion? How much did it cost to build that thing? 2.5?
Something like that.
It's crazy. It's a great way when the stadiums. When I know the folks from Tottenham came over and looked at AT&T, when they did a tour of all the stadiums, and the Jones family did the same thing. Every time we went on the road somewhere, the Jones family would go with us and look at these new stadiums, and they would point out, and people would say, if we had to do it over, this is what we would have done. If we had to do it over, we'd have done this, or we could have improved this. So I think by learning about these stadiums and how they're built, Tottenham, as you mentioned, is a great example of what the future of fields could be going forward.
Definitely.
Guys,
yep.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the knowledge and the insight. Appreciate it. It's always great to hear the great words of wisdom from you guys. So thanks so much. Tell the world where we can find you guys and where to listen to all your continued knowledge and expertise there.
Hey, just type Voch Lombardi. You'll see me. VOCHLOMBARDI. And on YouTube, Twitter, any social medias. I'm not very hard to find. I'm talking mess to some Cowboy fan that has no clue what they're talking about. So hey, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Barry.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to work with Voch. I'm just trying to quit all my jobs so I can go work with Voch because he's got it all together. So yeah, check out all his fine work. I love it, what he does and what his group does, and Will Steele, all these guys and gals, some tremendous content that they put out every single day about this football team.
For sure.
And so myself, 105.3 The Fan. God, I'm way too old to have this many jobs, but I do. 105.3 The Fan, doing stuff on Cowboys, DallasCowboys.com. Love of the Star, anything. Voch puts me on, I'll be on his show. So just check me out. I'm all over the place like he is.
Well,
guys, you can find me on IMP Stu. You can also find me with Meg Murray on the World's Team, part of bloggingtheboys.com, and also the UK Cowboys fans, which we're on every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 p.m. in the UK, 3 p.m. Central Time. I almost forgot the time difference there, but yes, I got there.
What happened? Did we get our password? We get hacked? What are we doing over there? About some security over there. What's going on?
Yeah, so our original Twitter account got hacked, so we had to recreate the new one.
Oh
So,
my gosh, what a nightmare!
Damn.
Oh
yeah,
my
but
god.
yeah, so all
Well,
those over 8,000 followers now pretty much gone to
oh
some
no,
idiot. But hey
no,
ho,
sorry about that.
but hey, you live, learn, and move on, I
Yeah.
guess. But we might still have a chance of getting it back. We might still,
Oh,
but
there you go. There you go.
but who knows? But I just want to say, Voch, it's actually an honor to actually meet you for the first time talking to you, man. So thank you for coming on as well. And Brian, we go a long time back, like way back.
We do.
Yeah, 2014. I was still. We keep saying this every time we speak. Like London was just
Greatest
a
time of
magical
my
moment.
life.
Yep.
I've been fortunate enough to win a Super Bowl. I would give that up to go and
was awesome.
spend time with London with you guys again. That was an absolute wonderful week. Wonderful.
Yeah,
week.
Voch, I'm saying this right now. Like, if the Cowboys were ever to come back to the UK, you need to get your butt over here, my friend.
Yeah,
You do.
Yeah, Voch. They
thing,
love you over there. They would love you over there for
This is
sure.
the thing about it. I have been absolutely broken poor my whole life. So like now that it's getting kind of better, you know what I mean? I can buy a ticket to come visit. So for sure, let's do
I
it.
might pay for your ticket, Voch. I might take you with me over there if we go. How
I'm
about that?
coming to London and Bryan.
Hey, here we go.
Hey, Voch, we also got to talk about Thanksgiving, Voch, because the UK guys, we got people coming from
Yes.
UK, Germany,
Yes.
Italy. So
Okay.
that's gonna be a
Yeah,
fun
so
week.
if-
We'll
yeah,
have
'cause
to keep in touch about that and see what I can do for you too as well. So
Sure.
Yeah, because Thanksgiving's going to be a big international takeover because obviously myself and Mike and everybody from the UK Cowboys are coming over. We've got friends from the Big D Germany or Big D Deutschland. They're coming over. The Cowboys Can fan, they're coming over, and I believe the Spanish Cowboys are coming over as well.
Jeez, what a party!
Oh, man.
This is gonna be
Yeah,
a
so
blast.
it's going to be a big international Thanksgiving this year.
Diversity.
Good
I
deal.
love it.
So this is why we keep saying here in the UK, it's not just America's team, it is the world's team. So
It's the
there
world's
you
team.
go.
That's true.
Okay, let's do that.
All right. Thanks so much. CowboysExperience.com. We got
Thank you,
about
guys.
16 days to our first live event. We have Tyler Smith booked for the first one. We got 2 more. We're waiting on confirmations, but our first live event on the Texas Lottery Plaza at the Toyota Music Factory. CowboysExperience.com. Guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it. And Cowboy fans, Cowboy Nation, thanks for your support.